Hi everyone, Einat Kessler here with a new video tutorial. So today we are going to create another art journal page concentrating on stamps. Now, some of you might be used to working with stamps and creating cards with beautiful images, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. So what I like to do first is put some plain papers under my art journal so it won't every other pages would stay clean. And I'm going to use different kind of background stamps. So whatever you have in your stash would be great. Any size, any shape, any arrangement, any pattern of background stamps is fine. Any material would be great. Now, background stamp is basically a pattern and not an image of something, a person, or an item. So squares, stripes, triangles, etc. Now, what I also like to do is take stamp sheets of images like here of numbers and use them as a background stamp. I'm going to show you in just a bit. So first I'm going to take some ink sprays and spray my page. I'm going to use three colors: blue or aqua, orange, and yellow. So I'm spraying my first layer, and it's very important to dry the sprays before you spray another layer, because the sprays are very liquid consistency and they will blend together if you keep on spraying. So that's how it looks while it's dry, and then you can go ahead and add more spraying. And again, always dry in between the layers so you won't get mud, because when all the colors blend together you might get mud instead of distinct colors that look really beautiful on your page. So I keep on drying, and I like the little pools that the spray creates sometimes. It adds really beautiful texture and interest to my background. So I want to make sure that the pools are also dry, completely dry, because I'm going to move on to stamping, and I don't want any smearing or blending or anything like that. So as I said before, I'm going to start with some background stamps, and I'm going to take this sheet of little number stamps and use it as one giant background stamp. That means that I'm not going to take any of the numbers off, any of the stamps off, and I'm just going to use them when they're simply attached to the sheet. Now, when you're working with art journaling, it's very important to use archival permanent ink when you're stamping, because that will make sure that you have no bleeding, no smearing, and no blending with anything that is water-based. So I'm using the Ranger ink, and I'm going to use the same colors that I used for the sprays. So I'm going to use blue ink, orange ink, and sort of a yellow red ink. Not exactly the same colors, but still very close. And I'm going to stamp all over the background and add more texture and patterns, different layers of stamping all over my page. So you can see how the numbers really turned out beautiful as a giant background stamp. And I'm continuing with another stamp. Another important thing to mention is that you see that I'm not mounting my stamps on any acrylic block. When you're working on an art journal page, it's less important to get the entire stamp on the page. Sometimes you just want to get a part of the stamp, and it's not an image that is very important to have all the lines and all the parts of the stamp on the page. It's not like you're using a stamp of a little girl and you need to make sure that the legs are there, for example. So in art journaling, it's very common not to mount your stamps on any acrylic block and simply take the stamp and press it against the page. Not even a complete press, just the center or the sides. And then you get a partial image, and it also gives you a sort of a blending effect and a layering effect of all the stamps together. So I keep on adding layers and layers of stamp, and you see that I have different shapes, different sizes of pattern, and of course using different colors enables me to create a really beautiful background with lots of details that are all visible on my page because they're layered one on top of the other. So every once in a while I stop and I see if I want to add something more, if I love the background or it still needs something, it's still missing something. And then I go in my stash and I find another stamp and I come back and add it to my page. You can see I'm only pressing the stamps in very small areas, and so I get little areas of the stamp on my page and not the entire block. And that's what I want. I want to add a little bit more there and a little bit more there. And it doesn't really matter what kind of stamps you have in your stash as long as you use some of them together and layer them on your page, and that would give you that beautiful stamped background. Now for a focal point. For the focal point of our art journal page, you need to pick whatever image that you want, a flower, a person. I'm going to go with a butterfly. Even though I'm using permanent ink, I still want to dry it just a little tiny bit to make sure that everything is very set onto the page. For my focal point, I'm going to use black ink. Again, archival permanent black ink. And here is my beautiful butterfly. I want it to look very bold, and that's why I've used the black ink. Now, almost always there is a little bit ink left on the stamp, and this is what is called a ghost stamp, because you can see it's very faint and very light, but it's still there, and I always like to do that and create sort of a mirror effect on my page. So now we're going to work on our text, on adding words to our art journal page, and I'm going to do this with some letter stamps. So what I'm going to do is spell a word with the letters, and this time I am putting it on an acrylic block because I need all the letters to show really nicely and to be stamped really crispy on the page. And as you can see, I did not create a word in a straight line. I rather have a whimsical, fun word. So I initially and I intentionally arranged it in a crooked kind of a way. And that will add lots of interest to your page if you do not create very straight lines of letters. Now I want to add a sentence, so I have smaller letter stamps and I've arranged them in 3 words. Again, not very straight. Don't need a ruler or anything like that. Just put on the letters in there and whatever comes out, comes out. And again, I'm using the black permanent ink. So fly, spread your wings, and that goes really well with my butterfly theme. And you can see how each letter is a little bit crooked and not really straight. And I think that the magical part of adding text to your art journal, it's supposed to be creative, expressive, free, and fun. So go with the flow and don't try to make it look very neat and organized. Now sometimes at this point I like to add a little bit more detail to the background, and I'm using again letters These are very small letters that I didn't take off the sheet, and I'm using them as a background stamp. Yeah, your letters are also shapes, so you can look at them as components in a word, but you can also look at them as a shape that you can play with in the background or as an element of design in your art journal, because letters have really beautiful, beautiful shapes. So try to look at them like I did with the numbers as a design element and not just as a component in a text. So I want to add a little more butterflies. So I'm using the same inks that I used for the background, and I'm adding a few more butterflies here and there. I don't care if the stamp is not perfect. This is art journaling. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be fun, expressive, cathartic, and healing and fun. So it's forgiving, it's without judgment, and you should be just creating and having a ball. So this is our page, and I really, really like how it turned out. You can see all the layering of the stamps and the focal point and the details that we added later, as well as the text. So the text is very important, and we used stamps, 2 different sizes, to add our text and our title to the art journal page. I hope you really liked this page as much as I did. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on the little bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video so you won't miss anything. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.